Mexico. It used to be Mexico, motherfucker, and now it's Phoenix, goddammit. USA, 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 USA. Yeah, fuck you back, nigga. I bet you don't leave here and go to Mexico, motherfucker. Go get you some Chilean speech. Motherfuckers think they can live in this country and then still be allegiance to another fucking country. If you love another country more than you love America, motherfucker, then get to step into that bitch. So if you love Mexico, bitch, get the fuck over there.
He gonna cry in the car.
Surprise, motherfucker.
السلام عليكم يا جماعة. أهلا وسهلا فيكم. خلينا نقول لكم على الحروف الأبجدية. يلا خلينا نبدأ.
You don't have to go to hell. You're in hell. This is hell. This is hell. This is hell.
Because democracy basically means government by the people, of the people, for the people. But the people are retarded.
Then strangled them, and finally dismembered their bodies.
Right.
Then do
Available.
and homelessness and all that.
And now, the voice you've been waiting for.
There is a secret song at the center of the world, and its sound is like razors through flesh. I'm here to turn up the volume. I'm kind of retarded.
I found myself reminiscing this past week about election night 2016, and I went into it with a case of beer and zero expectations. See, I figured whichever way the night was gonna go, it was gonna be a good night to be hammered. But I can remember at the moment when it became apparent that Trump had it, I found myself having a sobering, almost somber kind of moment. And not because I didn't want to see him win, but because all of a sudden, it became a question of exactly how much he was gonna end up disappointing me. See, if he had lost, I would always have those romanticized ideas of what could have been, but now it was a question of how is he actually going to measure up. And this time around, 3 weeks into the second term, what I'm seeing happen is more aligned with some of my highest hopes from that first time around. And really it seems that this is the way that it had to happen. 4 years of being insulated and surrounded by brown-nosers and backstabbers, the total shit show of 2020, and then 4 years of persecution and coming within an inch of assassination. It's hard for me to imagine the things playing out right now being possible without the past 8 years playing out exactly as they have. So while I may not be happy with every single move that he's made so far, and I will point out some of that a bit later, overall I am pretty fucking pleased. And as I suspected last week, this still unraveling USAID audit is in my opinion one of the strongest, most consequential moves so far. They've overseen the pissing away of untold billions on everything from useless LGBT and DEI initiatives, as well as funding terrorist groups all over the world under the guise of referring to them as freedom fighters, not to mention the laundering of money abroad, which is funneled through NGOs and then dumped right into domestic political groups. And as much shit as I've talked about Marco Rubio over the years, I still don't trust him, but I am glad to see that he appears to be doing the right thing. So far, anyway.
They have basically evolved into an agency that believes that they're not even a U.S. government agency.
that they are a global charity, that they take the taxpayer money and they spend it as a global charity, irrespective of whether it is in the national interest or not in the national interest. One of the most common complaints you will get if you go to embassies around the world from State Department officials and ambassadors and the like is USAID is not only not cooperative, they undermine the work that we're doing in that country. They are supporting programs that upset the host government for whom we're trying to work with on a broader scale and so forth. So they're completely unresponsive. They just don't consider that they work for the U.S. They just think they're a global entity and that their master is the globe and not the United States. And that's not what the statute says, and that's not sustainable.
Can it be reformed, or does it need to die?
Well, that was always the goal, was to reform it. But now we have rank insubordination. Now we have basically an active effort where their basic attitude is, we don't work for anyone. We work for ourselves. No agency of government can tell us what to do. So the president made me the acting administrator. I've delegated that power to someone who's there full-time, and we're going to go through the same process at USAID as we're going through now at the State Department. I think there are some, this is not about getting rid of foreign aid. There are things that we do through USAID that we should continue to do that makes sense. And we'll have to decide, is that better through the State Department or is that better through something, a reformed USAID? That's the process we're working through. There are things that are happening at USAID that we should not be involved in funding, or that we have a lot of questions about. But they're completely uncooperative. So we had no choice but to take dramatic steps to bring this thing under control.
He is very good at that reasonable-sounding political speak, because if you come out and say, yeah, these people are corrupt as shit, and they're basically the slush fund for the shadow government, while that may be true, it's not exactly helpful to frame it that way. Much better to say, yes, there are some problems that we need to definitely take a closer look at, because this agency is acting like they shouldn't have any kind of oversight or transparency. And seeing the way that the left and the corporate mockingbird media has made this their issue number one speaks volumes. Wednesday night I found myself at someone's house who actually has cable, so I decided to watch the primetime MSNBC lineup to see what kind of spin they were pushing out, and I was not disappointed.
But we begin tonight with a full-on crisis in our democracy, as federal workers are literally locked out of their offices while operatives working for a private citizen essentially take over our government. Their tactics include turning off our federal websites.
It never happened.
Deleting government-funded research that you, the taxpayer, paid for to impose speech codes.
I'm totally good with that.
Bullying news organizations by demanding interview transcripts.
That would be referring to the $10 million lawsuit over the 60 Minutes interview with Kamala Harris, where they heavily edited her answers, and they even outed themselves by the night before it aired on 60 Minutes. They aired a clip on Face the Nation where she had a completely different answer to the same question. But I can't quite figure out how this has anything to do with Doge or Elon Musk.
Implementing an FBI purge.
Oh, you mean getting rid of FBI agents that spent the past 4 years persecuting you and your followers instead of investigating real crimes? How awful.
Locking federal workers out of their computers and even turning them away at their offices.
So they can't delete the evidence of corruption?
While giving themselves, without congressional or any other authorization,
I'd like to go on record and say that I fully authorize this.
Full access to the personal data of tens of millions of Americans, including Social Security recipients, FBI agents and officials, military and government contractors, and every single employee of the federal government. All of that data in private hands that you did not authorize, even if you voted for Donald Trump.
This guy is fucking stupid!
I watched 3 shows in a row where over 90% of each one was railing about the threat that Elon and Doge poses to democracy. Probably my favorite part was seeing Senator Chris Murphy from Connecticut getting interviewed by Chris Hayes, and actually suggesting with a straight face that these people could be meddling with your Social Security and Medicare, and if your grandmother were to say something online that's unflattering about Trump, she might suddenly see her Social Security checks get cut off. The hysterical propaganda that they're pushing about this is as eye-opening as the revelations themselves of where this money's been going. Is it any surprise that some of these people that are crying the hardest about this are turning out to actually have personal ties to some of this foreign aid? See, for all the little things that Chris Murphy mentioned during this fiery little speech, he didn't at all mention the money that got sent over to Bangladesh with the purpose of destabilizing the country's politics. And one of the ways they planned on doing so was by pushing LGBT inclusion and tolerance, by, amongst other things, financing a transgender woman dance group.
That's a good thing.
I'm sure Chris Murphy couldn't have possibly been aware of every single little thing that USAID was financing, but for this one, he was their legislative point of contact. I have a feeling that by the end of this, a lot of these people that are the loudest voices against it are going to come out looking ridiculously stupid, if not corrupt and criminally liable. Although it's entirely possible that some of them are just idiots. Take AOC, for example.
This dude is probably one of the most unintelligent billionaires I have ever met or seen or witnessed.
She's sort of channeling the Kamala cackle there.
Watching these people on TV. Anyways, all of that is to say is that they don't do their homework. Clearly, like, they're putting 19-year-olds in at the Treasury. This dude is not smart. And the danger in the lack of intelligence and the lack of expertise.
But hearing her yap about people not doing their homework and the lack of intelligence and lack of expertise is just fucking hilarious to me. And then going on to say that, oh, they could just hit a button and then things could go sideways. Which does raise the threat of some kind of cyber Polygon event. If you were wanting to initiate some kind of cyber pandemic, now would be the perfect time because you could just blame it all on Doge and say, see, that's why we can't have people go in there and trying to clean things up because look what happened. And then, of course, you've got her #1 challenger for being biggest dipshit on Capitol Hill.
Thank you. Because every day that we show up in D.C., we show up for you. We know who we work for. We know that we work for the American people. And what we're not going to do is stand around while they pull this bullshit that they trying to pull right now.
Go ahead.
Watching her gives me the same vibes as an old Jerry Springer rerun. And whether or not the likes of these two halfwits had managed to take a seat on the gravy train that's now being derailed is yet to be seen.
Then there are some people, they're not stupid, they're full of shit.
People like Chuck Schumer, who I would feel confident enough to bet my hard plastic left nut that more than anything else he's trying to cover his own ass.
The American people will not stand for an unelected, secret group to run rampant through the executive branch. The elections occurred, and one viewpoint got a few more votes than the other, but that doesn't mean we throw out democracy. That doesn't mean what's been done for centuries in this country should just go out the window and be substituted by a small group of people who think they know a lot more than the wisdom of the American people.
He's fairly intelligent. He's full of shit.
Hearing somebody like Chuck Schumer warn about the dangers of a small group of unelected people who think they know a whole lot more than the wisdom of the American people. It's just like,
Wow.
And you being so tight with that shithead little son of George Soros, oh, that's okay because he's one of the good billionaires. Or any of these other D-bags that are in tight with him. But the irony actually got thicker when they unveiled new legislation to try to rein in Doge.
So today, Leader Jeffries and I are joining together to push legislation to prevent unlawful meddling in the Treasury Department's payment systems and protect Americans across the country. We call our legislation Stop the Steal.
Oh, I can't believe they're calling it Stop the Steal. I literally couldn't conceive of something more fucking ironic and hilarious. And you couple that with some of the rhetoric coming out of the angry black woman caucus.
And goddammit, shut down the Senate! We are at war!
Oh, it's too perfect, saying we are at war and goddammit shut down the Senate to, quote, stop the steal.
Oh, the irony! It's too much!
But like I said at the beginning of this, I am not on board with everything that's gone on. For example, the AI initiative that got announced with Sam Altman of all fuckheads, after he started OpenAI as a non-profit, open-source AI company, only to turn around and say, yeah, never mind. And then they put out ChatGPT, which is arguably the gayest fucking AI there is. On top of the developer/whistleblower they had that conveniently committed suicide recently.
Allegedly!
But just like how a few weeks ago I was talking about Bill Gates having that nice dinner with Trump and how let's just wait and see what happens. Well, he's turned out to be another one that's all butthurt about this USAID funding review and audit.
So I'm a little worried, particularly with this USAID stuff. My foundation partners with USAID on nutrition and getting vaccines out. And, there's incredible people. They're not actually worms that work there. So, hopefully we'll get some of that work back in shape. In fact, if we don't, you could have literally millions of deaths. So,
Are you threatening me?
A very thinly veiled warning/threat. And to be clear, when he says nutrition, he's referring to the lab-grown meat and the bug farms. But by far the most troubling thing I've seen so far was the announcement that the US would be taking over Gaza. It's a terrible fucking idea, and will do the exact opposite of stabilizing the region. That being said, I tend to want to agree with a lot of the people that are saying that this is just a tactic. Kinda like if you have two kids that are fighting over a candy bar, and they're just absolutely refusing to come to a compromise and share it. If you were to snatch that motherfucker up and say, well, guess what? Now I'm gonna eat it. Well, all of a sudden, they might become a whole lot more reasonable. And if you look at Netanyahu's reaction to when this announcement happened, he sure looked like he got blindsided. He is normally among the most polished politicians there are, always looking calm and confident, but all of a sudden, he started looking real nervous. He didn't seem to know what he's doing with his fucking hands. And I understand that this is just ammo, and I understand that this is the perfect ammo for the crowd that harps on and on about how Trump is really controlled by them. But what's your point? Are you saying we would have been better off had Kamala and Tampon Tim got in? Or that it's just completely hopeless no matter what? I mean, what's your suggested alternative plan of action? What's your point? Oh, wait a minute. You don't have a point.
I guess that means you need to shut the fuck up.
But hey, if being nihilistic is your prerogative, then have at it. I'm just saying I'm not about to lose my shit until I see something happen that actually warrants it. And I'm not quite there yet. Sláinte.
All I have in this world is my thoughts and my words, and I don't break them for no one. You understand? So say good night to the bad guy. 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 Come on. Come on. say goodnight to the bad guy. So say goodnight to the bad guy. So say goodnight to the bad guy. So say goodnight. So say goodnight. So say goodnight to the bad guy. So say goodnight to the bad guy. So say goodnight. So say goodnight. So say goodnight to the bad guy. I told you, don't fuck with me. 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 You stupid fuck. Look at you now. Look at you now.